Yeah, I suppose I'm here as the acceptable face of capitalism. I run an SME, which is about 25 to 30 staff at any one time. We're a communications agency. We've been advising some of the groups involved in the Remain campaign, so I've kind of seen some of the inner thinking, but also have been experiencing Brexit, the uncertainty, the holding up of investment. It's true, it's happening. SMEs are really important. I think they're important not just for the British economy, they're very important for the labour movement, and they're very important for the future of what social democracy could look like in this country. SMEs provide 60% of employment. They create often high quality jobs, and also there's a different relationship in an SME between the workforce and the employer, because it's much more of a strong relationship. If you're in a workforce of 15 people, it's easier to, say, for example, get unionised. It's easier to push back for your rights. Big multinational corporations, such as we've seen with ASOS warehouses or Amazon and the way they treat their staff, actually often workforces find it very difficult to exert their rights. I still don't think we've learned the lessons of the last referendum, and I hope we learn those lessons pretty quickly, especially if we go into a people's vote. If we have the CBI banging the drum for big business, Leave voters are going to go, you have learned absolutely nothing. It is big business, which is what we have rejected. We don't want to hear from massive employers. We don't want to hear from multinational corporations that they're going to pull investment. Every time I see Remainers on Twitter tweet about Morgan Stanley or City job losses, I think, how does that play in Sunderland? How does that play in the parts of the country who feel fundamentally left behind by our model of capitalism? That is not going to work. Also, we need to bring on board the trade union movement. We need to bring on board MPs. There's a lot of Labour MPs that still remain very, very sceptical, both about a public vote and also about the prospect of remaining in the EU. We haven't convinced everyone. We shouldn't pretend we have. So how do we persuade people? We need a specific Labour business perspective on this, which is around the role of small and medium enterprises. The messenger in a future public vote should be those small businesses. I want to see small businesses across the country saying, the reason we should stay in the EU is this: we can create high quality jobs in your locality. We can have a different model of capitalism, like the Preston model, where SMEs work together, SMEs cooperative working, a new model of capitalism that delivers the sorts of jobs that people want to see in the areas where, unfortunately, people have been left behind. And also we need to say that capitalism at the moment is rigged. There is massive players in markets who have used lobbyists to rig markets so that ordinary consumers get a worse deal. Now, at a European level, we can tackle those rigged markets. We can fight back against massive corporations. I don't think a Conservative government is going to do that, and I think those rigged markets will become more rigged, and British people pay the price for that. And there's two different economic models. There's a European economic model, look at the German economic model, more SMEs, more family-run businesses, inequality is lower. Why? Because people are closer to wealth. In their locality, people are closer to wealth. The Anglo-Saxon model, the American model, enormous corporations. People, you either get ahead in a corporation or you're left behind. It's actually an increasingly hostile place for SMEs. SMEs scaling up in America are not scaling up. There's a few exceptions to this, but are not scaling up as fast as they are in, say, other European countries. The European model of capitalism does actually work. Labour's position at the moment, unfortunately, is a betrayal of internationalism. We have got ourselves in a rut. The idea that Labour are going to go to Europe and try and negotiate a deal where we're not accepting free movement of people, even with conditions. Our current position is we will not accept free movement of people. That is a really, really problematic position. Because we've done that, we can't get access to the single market. So we need a fundamental rethink on immigration. There's a moral case and there's an economic case. The moral case is this: my gran is 92. She came over from Sicily in the 1950s. She is now having to apply for settled status. She has dementia. The government cannot tell me whether or not she will have access to healthcare after a no deal, after a damaging no deal. We are now looking for paperwork. We are now having to find things that we're being told to use an Android app. I mean, the whole thing is a moral disgrace. And we've seen what's happened to the Windrush generation. The idea we're going to treat EU migrants any better under a Tory government, I mean, come on. Labour should be leading the charge and saying, we're going to have absolutely nothing to do with this, and then making the case for migration, which is a bloody hard argument to have. I realise that, but we should be at the forefront of that. Then there's an economic case. We could go into that general election, Jeremy Corbyn saying, I'm going to spend an extra £24 billion a year and I'm not going to put up taxes by 1 pence. Not 1 pence. Why? You stay in the single market, 4% rise in GDP, £24 billion a year in additional tax revenues. That's £100 billion for social housing. We haven't raised any taxes. Like, we can have a socialist agenda, but we've just got to get our position in Europe right. It unlocks the doors for lots of other things. So if we have a public vote, we need a really clear offer for leavers. We need a clear offer which is about a recapitalisation of Britain, which is about community-based businesses, and it's about community banks. And when we say take back control, we need to take back control from large corporations who make change in people's lives, seemingly without the rule of law. We want a collective European action to companies like Airbnb or Uber. I'd like to get all the different little taxi firms across the country, many of whom are employing a lot of people, to be saying, these companies have come in, they've taken out hundreds of little small businesses, and the only way that we protect small businesses is through a European agenda on this. So there really is a fundamental choice for the Labour movement at this juncture. And I think unless we make a case that speaks directly to people's fears, speaks directly to a different approach, I think we're going to get ourselves stuck in the same rut that we've had for the last couple of years. But I'm slightly more optimistic than I was. I'm glad that we're getting in the right place. I'm glad that we're even now talking about a people's vote. That is actually a big sea change. We've now just got to win. We've now just got to win a people's vote.